Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is your latest Manchester United news as Manchester United enter the race for Ivan Toney. Could he be the striker solution for Manchester United this summer? We've got an active poll if you're watching live. Get your votes in there. In addition to this, and it's nothing to do with INEOS, it's nothing to do with Ivan Toney. INEOS have made a major transfer deal already. We'll be talking about what that is. We'll also be digesting quite a lot of the stuff that Fabrizio said at lunchtime with Beth. You can catch that video out, but my reaction to some of that as well. And obviously a lot more to get into too. Some interesting stuff around Erik ten Hag as well. Lots to get into on the show. Toney's going to be a really interesting topic. But before we get into that, a very interesting topic also is Manscaped. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. They're sponsoring our show tonight. Use the code TUS. You get free delivery and you get 20% off. What is Manscaped? Well, it's a variety of male grooming. You've got the beard trimmer, which has got 11 lengths on it. Absolutely love this. You've also got the weed whacker for up your nose. You've got the handyman, which you can take around with you and will give you a clean shave. I just use it for a tidy up around there and there and there, to be honest with you. And the creme de la month. The game changer, the lawn mower. This is for down there. Trim the grass to make the yard look bigger. It's got a light on it. You fancy doing it in a cupboard, you know, you're in a situation where you need a quick, you know, oh, it's got two lights on it. I can't turn it off. You're in a situation where done it again. You're in a situation where, you know, you need a quick trim. Just pop it in this cupboard, love, and have a little trim there. Big shout out to Manscaped, fantastic products. Once you've bought them, you will not regret it. Get that free delivery and 20% off with the code TUS. Big shout out to Manscaped. Game changer. Right, let's get into the show then. So we're going to talk about Ivan Toney. Fabrizio this afternoon exclusively on the United Stand saying that Ivan Toney could be a good opportunity for Manchester United this summer. This has sparked the usual conversation about Ivan Toney on social media with a few in the know people coming out saying, look, Arsenal don't want him. Chelsea aren't going to go for him. This opens the door for Manchester United. Some saying that Man United weren't going for Toney because they didn't think they had much chance because he would want to stay in London. But if Chelsea and Spurs and Arsenal don't want him, then potentially Manchester United could move in for him as an option as that second striker or a striker. Let's not, second striker is quite derogatory. As a striker that Manchester United want to bring in. He's English, he's in the England squad. He's probably going to play tomorrow, let's be honest. He's probably going to go to the Euros. Brentford are looking to sell. He's definitely looking to go in. I mean, bloody hell. He's flirted with more clubs than Tiger Woods, this guy. He sits down every interview talking about where he might go. So, he's definitely going to want to move. Is he the right player for Manchester United? I open the forum to you. Is he the right player for Manchester United? 62% of you are saying yes at the moment. What are my thoughts on this? They're multifaceted, actually. When I look at the player, and I look at the player first, but what I will say, overarching all of this, I don't want to make the same mistakes that we've been making for the last 10 years where we go for a good player and we don't look at everything else. And we'll talk about everything else in a minute because there is other things we need to take into account. And whether people say you can't do that, you can. You bloody well can. And with Manchester United trying to close the gap on elite teams with elite players, we can definitely look at the behaviours and mentalities of players. We have to look at that. So it might be unfair to look at that in relation to Ivan Toney. We'll talk about that in a minute, whether it's fair or not. But first of all, let's look at the player. Now, his goal ratio in the Premier League for a team like Brentford is quite remarkable. In fact, it's bloody fantastic. You can't argue with the fact that he scores a lot of goals in the Premier League and he's proven himself as a Premier League striker. I can't argue with that. I think it's bloody fantastic. Also, he is remarkable in the air. Both offensively and defensively from corners, he is absolutely brilliant in the air. Flick-ons as well, he is brilliant. He is brilliant in the air. There is no doubt about that. Now, why is that important to Manchester United, Mark? Well, Scott McTominay has made a living out of Man United for being good in the air. I'm telling you now, if Scott McTominay was 5'10", he wouldn't even be a Man United player. He has been picked so many games because he's tall. So let's not forget, Ivan Toney and his height could be massively important here in relation to Manchester United. What I would say is that if you watch football, if you consume football, Brentford don't play like Liverpool, Arsenal or Man City, and they never bloody will. Brentford beat us 4-0 with 30% possession. They beat Liverpool with 30% possession. So why are Brentford still in the Premier League? Why are they such a threat? Brentford like to hit direct balls into Ivan Toney. He flicks them on to the wingers, he gets in the box. They are very, very direct, and it suits Ivan Toney. So if you put Ivan Toney up front for Arsenal or Manchester United, and you don't hit direct balls and you want to play possession football, does he work in that system? Well, look, he's got a few assists. His link-up play is not bad. In a Man United side, I could see those longer balls from Bruno being flicked on by Toney for Garnacho and Rashford to run onto. I could see that working. Is that the style of football you want at Manchester United? These direct balls into Toney, a little flick into Rashford, it could work. It could work. On the other hand, we could transform into a possession-based side where he just hangs around the penalty box and, you know, causes problems and scores goals. So look, I'm not dismissing his abilities to step up. This is what he wants to do. As I said, he's flirted with more clubs than Nick Faldo over the last few weeks. He thinks he could go to Real Madrid, tongue in cheek. But look, he wants to make a move. And he is a very good striker. And there's not a lot of them about. So on purely footballing ability, I think he is worth a look at. The rumour is Arsenal don't want him because they're a bit worried about his personality. That's a rumour. The betting charges are a fact. His interviews are arrogant, but he is a striker and they can be very arrogant. It's a no for me. I'm not going to mess about. It's a no for me. It's a no. And I almost need to explain the no for me. A hunch. It's a pure hunch. It just doesn't feel right. There's just something about it that doesn't feel right. And yet, he has a lot of admirable attributes. He is Premier League proven. He is a player that will come in and compete for a first team place with Rasmus. Those are all the qualities you want. So why is it a no? I just have a hunch. I just have a bad feeling about it that it's not the right deal for us to do. And it could be as simple as how much Brentford would want. I personally think 70 million is too much for us to spend on a striker when we've already got a £70 million striker. Maybe that's part of the hunch. Maybe I'm just not comfortable with the sort of player I hear in interviews. I think he's a bit of a big time Charlie, and that's worked for us in the past. It has worked, you know. We've seen Cantona come in with a personality. We've seen Paul Ince come in with a personality all those years ago. It can work. It can be the making of a player. Does his age bother you, Mark? No, not really. I don't think so. What is he, 27? That's not the end of the world. I mean, look, you get 4 years out of him easy. Oh, he's 28. See, you get 4 years easily out of him. I mean, if you spent £75 million on a striker and you got 4 years out of him and he scored 20 goals a season, it's not really the price. No, I don't think it's the price. I just think it's a hunch. And I don't know the guy. I can't say bad attitude. People who compare him to other players that we've had with bad attitude, it's really unfair. I don't know anything about the player. I know he had a charge for betting, but, you know, you'd hope Toney is going to come back from a betting charge. You know, you can't say give Toney a chance and don't give Toney a chance. What's that all about? So it's not the betting charges for me. It's not the price for me. I just don't get a good feeling about it. I just don't think it's the right deal to do. I don't. But look, that's not going to stop Man United doing the deal. That's not going to stop 62% of you being right. I just don't fancy it. If I'm being honest, I don't. Obviously, if we sign him, I will back him. I didn't really get a good feeling from Matic or Lukaku, but I backed them both, and I genuinely said it at the time. I just don't get a good feeling from these signings, but I'll back them. If you're holding up a Man United shirt, I will 100% back him. What about Evan Ferguson? Look, he's probably going to cost you more than Toney, and that's a bit more of a gamble. But I prefer Ferguson. I prefer Ferguson to Toney, if I'm being honest with you. But look, I think it's interesting what Fabrizio Romano said, and that to me is the overarching opinion. When Fabrizio Romano is saying Ivan Toney could be a good opportunity for Manchester United this summer, you know what I think that's all about? Read the words. Ivan Toney could be a good opportunity for Manchester United this summer. I think I'm going to say two things here. Why are Man United suddenly in for Ivan Toney? And why is he suddenly a good opportunity? And why is he suddenly doing interviews about being sold? You know, I'll hopefully Brentford get a load of money and I get a good move. If you've got a load of options, you don't need to do interviews about hopefully you'll get a move, hopefully you'll get a load of money. Jude Bellingham wasn't doing that. If your agent's phone is ringing off the hook, you don't need to be talking publicly about a move. I think the fact that Toney's talking about a move a lot is because he's not really getting many options. Maybe Arsenal have backed out. Maybe Chelsea aren't interested. Maybe this opens the door for Manchester United. The big question is, if he wants to go to Arsenal or Chelsea and they don't want him, why are we stepping in? That's the question. Why are Arsenal and Chelsea backing off, and why are we stepping in? That's the question I would want to know. That's the question I want to know. Why is it now an opportunity for Manchester United because everybody else is backing off? Why are they backing off? What is it about the other clubs that are opening the door to this deal? That's what I would want to know, but I'm not going to know that. You're not going to know that. Let Arsenal have him. He's not good enough, and he's another bad personality we're trying to clear out from the club, says Fear the Indoor. His personality in that dressing room, that English clique as well, says NS. Not for me. What play some games and will run for an interview claiming he should play more. Højlund's development will be hindered, says Boss. He's decent with the decent stats, but United need to aim for much better than Toney. I'm used to seeing Rooney, Ronaldo, Van Persie, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Andy Cole, Dwight York, etc., says Kia. Loving the shows recently and love from Wigan, says Fratello. Will Brailsford incremental outlook impact transfers? No big signings, many small deals having big impact combined. New thumbnails need a logo, says Co. And when is career mode back, says Red Army Stan TV. Might be back tomorrow, depending on timings. I'm looking forward to bringing that back. Any update on Jonathan David, says Stefan. I don't know whether Fabrizio said anything about it. I did ask Beth to ask him, but I didn't see any tweets go out about it. We are supposed to be buying players with good character. Toney fails that test, says MW1. What about Vlahovic, says Wild. People judging him off his personality but haven't met him, says Marvin. I think that's a fair point. I mean, I wouldn't say don't sign him based on personality. I think his interviews come across as arrogant, but that might not be a bad thing. He'll have a point to prove wherever he goes. That can be a thing. I just have a hunch it's not a good deal. I'm not going to say he's got a bad attitude or anything like that. Toney would be a good partner for Garnacho, says Bolver. Well, the big thing about signing someone like Ivan Toney is, and Rasmus would probably be sat here going, why do Man United want to sign Ivan Toney, who's very good in the air, and you get no service? So, again, if you're not going to put crosses into the box, what's the point in having Ivan Toney? You know? If you haven't got a cross, what's the point? Hayden Hackney, Mark, we want him from Middlesbrough, says Ian Nichols. And Toney was being sarcastic in his interview, says Sheldon. Mate, sarcasm or not, he never shuts up about leaving Brentford. And he hasn't shut up for about 3 months. So, you know, sarcasm or not, he doesn't shut up about leaving Brentford. There's numerous interviews about that. Kudos, 15 goals and 5 assists this season. Yeah, we won't be getting him, Gerard. What's his injury record like, says Akil. I don't know. If anyone wants to bring that into the show, then by all means do. And half of Toney's goals are penalties. He's overrated, says Fear the Indoor Horse Rancher. Better option would be João Pedro from Brighton, says Arigami. I do like him. I think he's settled in really, really well. Anyway, moving the show along. Interesting story coming out tonight from iPaper Sport, which is, I don't know really how to. They're an English news outlet. Okay. So basically what they're saying is quite a comprehensive update from them. So Jim Radcliffe and INEOS are planning for Erik ten Hag to be in charge at Manchester United next season, but are also developing a strategy to be able to move quickly should they decide to replace him. I actually think this is what's actually happening at Manchester United, if I'm being honest. And it's not offensive. It's not wrong. Like, if you're planning to be with Erik ten Hag next season, great. But if you're also putting structure in place that you can move quickly if you need to, great. I've said this before. Brighton know who they want to replace De Zerbi with if he goes tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal will have a contingency plan. Somebody at Arsenal will be designated the job of having a replacement for Arteta lined up if he gets ill, leaves, or sacked. Any big club does it. And that will change all the time. And periodically, the CEO or the director of football will speak to that person at Arsenal and say, if Arteta walks or we sack him, where would we go? And he would go, well, Almiron, Alonso, Nagelsmann, these are 3 options we think we could go for pretty quickly. So United having that in place is absolutely a major step forward. So I think this has been the thing all along, and I think the media have tried to turn it into something it isn't. I think INEOS want to work with Erik ten Hag next season, but I think they're also putting a structure in place that if they need to move for whatever reason, they have something in. And maybe Ten Hag goes, I don't like what you're doing. I want to go to Bayern Munich. So there is always has to be a contingency in place. There does. Otherwise, who are you and what are you going to do? So it makes absolute sense. And United haven't done that before. When we sacked Jose Mourinho and we knew for 2 months he was on the edge of the sack, we sacked him and gave the job to Ollie. There was no contingency plan at all at Man United. When we sacked Solskjaer, we had no contingency plan and we put another interim in. So I'm positive about this because any big club has to always be moving, thinking, what's the next manager if we have to do it? And if United are putting those plans in place, that doesn't mean they're looking to sack Ten Hag. Brighton have got it in place. They're not trying to sack De Zerbi. Arsenal will have it in place. They're not trying to sack Arteta. We do need that structure in place. We do need to have ideas if we need to move quickly. And the fact that we failed twice at this shows that we're now putting something into place, structure, that we didn't have before. We didn't have it before. We sacked managers and had no bloody clue what we were going to do once they'd been sacked. And it wasn't even sudden. They knew Mourinho was under pressure for months. They knew Ollie was under pressure for months. And when they finally got round to sacking them, they had no plan in place. So look, I think this is a real positive thing. Also, coming out today, anybody who would like De Zerbi to be the next Manchester United manager, and I certainly don't. I've been quite concerned about Brighton this season and some of the decision-making that De Zerbi has made. Was he a one-hit wonder? Was he a one-season wonder? Who knows? But I certainly wouldn't be taking him as a Man United manager at the moment. I'd want to see what he does next year. Brighton have come out today, I heard this on the radio, and said that the release clause for De Zerbi is £20 million. Now, you might say that sounds like a lot. It's probably about right. I think Chelsea paid around that for Potter. So if you want De Zerbi and you want to sack Ten Hag, that's 30 million quid gone straight away. 20 million to get De Zerbi and 10 million to sack Ten Hag. So I think we can put a cross through De Zerbi because we ain't spending £30 million to do that, are we? So I think that's a real positive. Levi says, we don't actually need a big Kane or Osman type striker to start competing. Arsenal bought Gabriel Jesus, a bench striker for Man City, and he did really well. Thomas says, I think we need to buy Premier League proven players and avoid lower leagues such as Eredivisie and Serie A, says Thomas. Well, I think it depends on, you've got to take it on an individual case-by-case basis, I think, in my opinion. Anyway, the article goes on to say, poor results that would mean Man United missing out on the Champions League football next season could work against Ten Hag, insiders said. But as it stands, Radcliffe and his right-hand man, Sir David Brailsford, have no plans to change the manager. Well, yet again, I said this morning. I think the obsession with Champions League football being, this is a press thing. This is not a reality. Since when has Champions League football been a requirement for Ten Hag to stay in his job this season? We've never been near Champions League football. All season we've never been near it. So why is it now that we suddenly think that we're good enough for Champions League football? We're miles off Villa and Spurs. You don't get Champions League football for 6th. We've been flirting with 8th and 9th for most of the season. So I don't know where this Champions League thing comes from. I think what actually matters is how many losses we have between now and the end of the season. We could still get Champions League football. We could win 8 of our last 10 and not get Champions League football. So I don't think the Champions League football actually is the point. I think if we lose 5 of our last 10, that's shaky ground. That's thin ice. I think it's more about the performance and results over the next 2 months rather than where we end up. Because Villa and Spurs could lose 9 of their last 10. We could lose 6 of the last 10 and still get into the Champions League. So I think it's about performance and how many games we lose, to be honest, over the next few games, which I think most of us would actually agree with. Also, a source says, making big calls, this is about Sir David Brailsford and his strategic review, making big calls without consulting the experts is not what Sir David Brailsford does. If anything, he asks too many people's opinions. Delegating to the right people is his thing. He's fully aware that Dan Ashworth and Barada know better than he does whether Ten Hag is right for Manchester United. Transforming how major decisions are made is really what he's there for. So, look, effectively, what does that mean? It effectively means that Sir David Brailsford's job is to do exactly what it says on the tin. He's there to run a strategic review. He's there to look at the gaps, and he's there to implement the structure around it. So he's not there to sack Ten Hag. He's not there to make transfer decisions. He is there to implement the change and basically say that, look, a CEO who knows about football is going to come in and he's going to have a big say about football. A director of football who knows about recruitment and strategy is going to come in and he's going to build a team there. And then the coach is going to be below that, working with that. That's how it's going to work. It's very different to how it works now. The CEO and the director of football will work together on the footballing side vision and will have a big say on what happens with the manager. I would imagine this goes in the favour of Ten Hag because, quite rightly, if Barada is going to have a massive point on recruitment of managers and players and everything else, he is the CEO. The CEO is the top guy. So there may well be Sir Jim Ratcliffe, the Glazers, Blanc on the board, Sir David Brailsford on the board, but the CEO is not there to be a toothless tiger. He is there to lead the club. And Barada is obviously formerly Man City, working with Pep Guardiola. Ten Hag is a disciple of Pep Guardiola, and I'm pretty sure that in Barada's time at Man City, Ten Hag will have been looked on favourably. So it could be quite good for Ten Hag if Barada, quite rightly, is given the opportunity to run the football club. Justin says, what about Faye from Barcelona? Low-cost left-footed centre-back who's been very impressive and scouted by Bayern. Justin, I've heard a few people talk about this Faye guy, but I don't really have any opinion on it because I don't really think it's anything that we can, move the needle on either way at the moment. Is it any different to being linked to Arajo or Harahu, however you pronounce it? 2 years ago, we were linked to him. Nothing ever happened. There is this belief that you can take quality players from Barcelona who are 19, and it never seems to happen. So if we get him, look, very exciting player, but it's not the first time we've been linked to an exciting young player from Barcelona who suddenly signs a new contract. What percent are you that Erik Ten Hag will be manager next season? I think he'll be here, says Rory. Right here now, I'm probably 75% sure he'll be Man United manager, but I would be wrong if I didn't acknowledge the next 2 months as being precarious. Look, that Coventry City semi-final is precarious. You lose that. What I'm trying to say is there are skipping ropes there for Ten Hag to trip on over the next 2 months. Even like Saturday, Brentford, Toney. I'm sure it's not lost on you lot. We're talking about Ivan Toney tonight. We're playing them on Saturday. He's going to be pumped up like a beach ball, ready to rock, ready to put himself in the shop window, not just for Man United, but for somebody else as well. Brentford away is a difficult game. Chelsea away is a difficult game. Liverpool at home is a difficult game. We could lose all 3 of those, in which case the heat's just been turned up on Ten Hag. So yeah, I'm 75% sure he's staying at the moment. Ask me after those 3 games, I might be like, he's in big trouble here. So we'll have to wait and see, Rory. Thank you very much for that. The next bit of the article says this, and probably the most important bit, actually. This is where things are happening already around transfers. Transfer responsibility will now be taken away from Ten Hag, regardless of whether it is Ten Hag or someone in the hot seat next season. Dan Ashworth's team, which will grow considerably in the coming months, will assume those duties when they are in place. Now, look, this is a grey area. This is a very, very, very grey area. Does this mean that Erik Ten Hag now becomes a puppet, a coach with no power, which I don't want to see happening? Or does this mean we finally put a structure in place where a director of football works with the manager in a shared vision? Because we've never had that before. We've never had a qualified, authoritative football, director of football and CEO who have the final say, but work collectively with the manager. That's what I want. I want a situation where Ten Hag says, I want Onana, and the director of football says, we're not spending £50 million on Onana and letting David De Gea walk out the door for nothing. You can use that £50 million on somewhere else and we'll keep De Gea for another year. That's what I want a director of football to do, is to sometimes say no. Hopefully that's what's going to happen. What I don't want is, Eric, you've got no say in signings at all. We will decide who gets sold and we will decide who gets bought with no input from you. I think that destroys what Man United's meant to be all about. That's not what Pep's got. That's not what Arteta's got. That's not what Klopp's got. This is what Chelsea do. This is what Brighton do. The coach is just on the training ground coaching whatever players he gets given and whatever players get taken away. And I don't think that's a good idea for Man United. So I'm hopeful that Ten Hag retains a part in the transfer system, but obviously there is a structure above him. I guess we'll have to just wait and see how it pans out. Also, the same article goes on to say Ten Hag does have other options, with one source adding a return to either Ajax or Bayern Munich could happen if he leaves Old Trafford, but it's understood he is very keen to finish what he has started in England. So, look, ultimately, I don't think that's a surprise for anybody. Erik Ten Hag will have options elsewhere because he is a respected coach. And I think the world of football beyond England appreciates that the challenges of the job that Ten Hag has had to endure over his first 2 years. So there will be jobs out there for him, of course. But he is tunnel visioned on the job he wants to do at Manchester United. So, look, in summary, we're starting to get some structure. We're starting to put some contingency plans in place, and we're starting to build a proper transfer system that United can work with years to come. Ten Hag is obviously very clear that he wants to stay, and INEOS are very clear that they want him to stay. I think the next 2 months are potentially hazardous, but if he can come through that, he will stay as Man United manager. And I think, I don't think anybody would have much of a problem with that. Abdi says there are about 15 players we can make an argument for leaving or benching, and people still talk about sacking the manager. Yeah, check out last night's start bench sell. What a video that was. Stephen King says, Mark, I agree that Ten Hag should stay, but if he did go, who would you say should be manager? I mean, it's like looking at the bottom of a rabbit's hutch, mate. It's full of shit. Thomas Frank, Graham Potter, Gareth Southgate. We're not going to go for a Hansi Flick, by the way. They won't go for someone like that. They wouldn't sack Ten Hag and go for Hansi Flick. They just won't do that. De Zerbi, it won't be him because he's too expensive. And Nagelsmann may well now stay at Germany. So, if we're sacking Ten Hag to bring in Potter, Southgate or Frank, God help us. Thanks for what you do, Mark. Keeps the depression away, says Curtis. Glad to hear that. Hope you're doing well, Curtis. Zay says, if United were to sign Toney, how do you think it would affect the development of Rasmus, if at all? Do you think Toney goes straight into the team? Look, I think in Rasmus and Garnacho and Mainu, we've got stars of the future if we provide them the platform to develop. Look, from what I've seen of Ivan Toney, he's very, very assured and confident. Is he going to sit there? Is he going to sit there and be a backup striker to Rasmus silently? Or is he going to come in and believe that he should be starting? There's a lot to be said for bringing in a player that knows their role and is a team player. It could work well. It could work terribly. Do you want, you want a happy dressing room. You don't want a toxic dressing room. And yeah, who knows how that could work out? I don't know, Zay. I don't know. Also, a couple more coming in. English Saturn says, Mark, off topic, but I think we're not playing Ahmad to avoid paying add-ons to Atalanta. This only indicates we're trying to sell him and make profit. Well, we'll find out, I suppose, in the summer. And Francesco says, are you aware that you look like the young Ned Stark actor? I'm not. I'm trying to think who you mean about that one. And Spencer says, with INEOS taking charge of transfers and having a contingency plan, I can see Erik Ten Hag playing different style of football next season, dictated to by INEOS, which is fine. Jose says, let's let Erik Ten Hag finish his story exactly. And Ray Cowley says, yes, we need a striker. 50 million plus on a striker is wasted, though. We need to spend it on creativity in the midfield and defence, then a striker. Good points by Ray there. Toney is a starter. He won't be a bench player, says Trevor. 63% of you, by the way, would go for Toney. Elrond Bridge, says Sam Baxter. I know who you mean now. He played young Ned Stark, and then he's Elrond in that Lord of the Rings rubbish. But I like Lord of the Rings films, but I thought the Amazon Prime thing wasn't great. English and Premier League proven ideal for Sir Jim's Brexit mission, says Solid Blake. And Dennis says that Toney is better than Rasmus. Well, you're not a Man United fan, Dennis. Why would you be a Man United fan talking about a young striker that is developing at Manchester United and we all want to do well? Why would you champion a Brentford striker over Rasmus Højlund? You're not a Man United fan. You're not a Man United fan. You're talking out your arse. That's not the behaviour of a Man United fan. A Man United fan would sit here and say Garnacho's better than, Saka, because it's called loyalty to the players that you've got. Anyway, let me just summarise some of the stuff that Fabrizio mentioned on the show today. There's a lot more, but I just want to go through some of the key topics that were mentioned and sort of give my opinion on it. He did say that in relation to a striker, there are still internal discussions over the exact profile of striker they want to go for, whether they want to go for another younger option or go with someone a lot of experience. So although there are those links to Toney, there is still some work to be done by Manchester United as to what sort of striker they want, which is good. You want to make the right decision. And in doing that, you can talk to a wide range of agents, of course. He also spoke about the managerial situation and said any links made with Gareth Southgate or Graham Potter are at the moment because INEOS appreciate both managers, not because of proper talks. Erik ten Hag still remains in the plans as it stands. And look, that's from Fabrizio Romano, so I will pass comment on this. If INEOS admire Southgate and Potter, it terrifies me. I'm sorry. They will do good and they will do bad. And hopefully the bad will be minor and hopefully the good will be plentiful. But if they admire Graham Potter and Gareth Southgate as coaches, it terrifies me what INEOS's knowledge of football is. And hopefully people like Barada will put his foot down and say, at Man City, we wouldn't have wiped our arse with Potter or Southgate or Thomas Frank, because they wouldn't. They wouldn't. So, look, yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Some of the statements have been crazy lately, says Idris. And honestly, I would prefer a young unknown striker, says John. Also, Fabrizio, I said this to you 2 weeks ago. I said that McTominay, Rashford and Bruno will not be sold. Well, what did Fabrizio have to say? Manchester United are more than happy to keep Scott McTominay at Manchester United. However, if an important offer came in, they may listen to it. So, look, I think it's very obvious that he's going to stay. He mentioned that we're scouting a lot of players in South America. I think this is something that Ten Hag would be massively... I think this is something that began way before INEOS. Well, in fact, I know it is. Simon says, dumb comment, Mark. You need to tell people what the comment is, Simon. I've been talking for 40 minutes. There may well have been multiple dumb comments. So, just a little bit of tip to you. Your comment's dumb because you haven't told me what the comment is, so I can't really come back at it. You're basically projecting to yourself. If you type dumb comment, Mark, nobody knows what you're talking about. Only you. You've taken the time to type 3 words. Type what it is you think's dumb. Bit of a help. But when Erik ten Hag came into the club, one of the first things he said was, why do Man United not recruit well from South America? Ajax do it really well. I mean, off the top of my head, Martinez, Mexico, Alvarez, Mexico, Martinez, Argentina, sorry. Alvarez, Mexico, North America, Brazil, Anthony, and there are others. Ajax have got a good scouting system and they recruit well from the South America and the North America. Manchester United are shit at it. We're terrible. We hardly ever recruit from South America or North America. So this is something that Ten Hag sort of asked and said, why are we not doing it? I think we will start to see the result of that over the next 12 months. We certainly should be recruiting more from, South and North America, 100%. This was the big thing I wanted to bring into the show. It's a fear I've had for a long, long time. And it's very sad news. It's not Toney, then it has to be Sesko, says Razla. Do you get called by Mark? Wesley says, do you get called Mark by everyone, or do they use your real name? Love the show and the channel. Predominantly you get called Mark Wesley, which I'm happy about. Honestly, I would prefer a young unknown striker, says John. I've done that. I'm just catching up on the comments there. Lots of deluded ones tonight, says Cal. Oh, your comment on Garnacho and Saka was dumb, says John. No, but what I'm saying is, as a Man United fan, I'm going to defend Garnacho because I believe he's got the potential to be better than Saka. I'm going to defend Mainu because I think he's got the potential to be better than Phil Foden. I'm going to defend Rasmus because I think he's got the potential to be better than Ollie Watkins or Ivan Toney, maybe even Harry Kane. That's what I mean. Being a Man United fan, you're never going to sit here and go, Toney's better than Rasmus. That's just not how a United fan would work. It's not how a Liverpool fan would work. You are protective of the players that you believe in and you want to grow at your football club and become better and better. That's my point. Owners had no idea how many jobs Sir Alex did while managing the club. Terrifies me to think how many people are now being paid to do the small jobs he did, says Glenn. Good point. What do you think of this is it, Ryan. I'm literally about to talk about this. So Ryan's one of our members. Get your badge in. What do you think about what Romano said on Malacia? Also, where did your last name come from? I saw your real name on Google, says Ryan. It's Italian. In relation to Malacia, this is really sad news. But it's not something... I need a stretch. It's not something that we haven't mentioned. I'd love to do more of a stand-up show. You know, I need a talking mic and a bigger camera. But... I love doing the stand-up shows because I get to walk around. If you've been to any of the stand-up shows, I can't stand still. But basically, as a prelude to this, we've spoken, and as Terp says, it doesn't look good for Malacia. Apparently, I'm a hypocrite. I'm going to stop reading the idiotic comments that won't actually tell me what they have a problem with because they're scared. Tell me what the problem is. You might get a readout, but I'm not just going to read dumb comments. This is what Fabrizio has had to say about Malacia. It's a really complicated moment for the boy. He's really struggling. I think Man United will make some clarity in the next weeks or months to clarify what's happening. This is an exclusive. I'm amazed it's not been picked up. You know what? I think there's a bit of a problem, isn't there, with certain other aggregators, with certain other mainstream outlets. They don't like to put stuff up. I've noticed this with certain Man United journalists. Fabrizio Romano is a million times bigger than them, and they never like to write anything that he reveals about Man United. I looked this afternoon, I was like, this is a massive exclusive from Fabrizio, and nobody wants to write about it. And also because he does it on the United stand, and we're not going to put that out. But this is massive. It's an absolutely massive exclusive that Fabrizio is saying that Malacia's really struggling and there will be some clarity in the next weeks or months to clarify what's happening. There is something majorly sinister going on with Malacia. And it makes me really sad. It makes me really sad. Because in our country, we've had this go, it's almost like echoing itself in football. Princess Kate Middleton, the heir to the throne's wife, hasn't been seen in public for a long time. The conspiracies about photoshopped pictures, AI, etc. She did an interview on Friday evening saying she's got cancer. Really, really sad. And obviously wish her and her family all the best and a full recovery. But, you know, when somebody's out of sight, there's probably a very good reason for it. And on a very footballing basic level, I can't jump on conspiracy theories and say there's something other than football reasons why he's not playing. I just think it could be a career-ending injury. That's what my fear has been all along. And it's only a guess. And as a fan community, we've got every right to discuss this. It's a football player for Man United who's not played for a very long time. The only thing I could say with any genuine guesswork without wandering into conspiracy theories is I think it could be a career ender, because I've said it a few times. United have been quite quiet about a few injuries. Mason Mount was out for 6 months. We don't really know what the injury was. Was it something to do with his calf or something, or his ankle? But with Malacia, we always knew it was a knee injury. And he basically did it last June. Like, if Fabrizio says there's going to be some announcement in the next weeks or months, he ain't coming back, is he? He's not coming back this season. So he's basically been out for a year. Now, when somebody does their cruciate ligament, they can be back in 7-8 months. They can certainly be back in the training ground. I've seen Van Dijk do his knee. I've seen other players do their knee. And there's pictures of them in the training ground doing bike work 4 or 5 months in. He's done nothing for 9 months. So I think I've always had this fear that the injury is really bad. Solid says it's almost too long to be an injury. Well, that's what I mean. I don't disagree with that. It's like, it's too long. There's been no pictures of recuperation. So there's either something really scary and sinister going on, or the injury is just an absolute crippler that he can't get past. The big question, and Joseph makes it, why did we get rid of Reguilon then? And that to me is why I think it's injury, because Ten Hag said in an interview that he was told Luke Shaw and Malacia would be back in January. So there's two theories there. One, he's had a relapse, or two, it's not an injury. There's some other reason why he thought he was going to be back in January and now he's not. And what that other reason could be, I don't want to even speculate. Is he injured? You know, but I have to work on the assumption that he's injured. And when you read between the lines, between what Fabrizio has said, he says it's a complicated moment. He's really struggling, and I think Man United will make some clarity in the next weeks or month to clarify what's happening. I mean, that's a very vague statement. That doesn't even mention injury. It's complicated. He's struggling. Clarity. 3 words. Complicated, struggling, clarity. Does that sound like an injury? 3 words from that double sentence from Romano. Complicated, struggling, clarity. Could be injury related, but it's really sad. You know, part of you wants it not to be football related, but then that might be horrible for him, whatever he's going through. Because if it is injury related, I think it's a career ender. So we'll have to wait and see. Is the mention of looking at a left back a concern when we need a right back and Aaron Wan-Bissaka's looking to be sold? Can we do both or one? Put on the back burner, says Ray. Well, yeah, look, keeping it on football, he did say that Man United want a left back to compete for a starting position, but they won't spend anything crazy. Again, I think you add, this was going to be the second bit. When you add, that's from Fabrizio. United want a left back to complete with a starting position, but they won't spend anything crazy. Well, obviously we've given up on Malacia. If we want a left back to do Malacia's job in the summer, we obviously have given up on Malacia for whatever reason. So we're going to find out. I think United, there will be a bit of pressure to find out, but I don't know. I don't know how that works. What I would certainly say is we had the interview with Fabrizio this afternoon. I would go and watch it because I can't do justice a few quotes. I'm just reacting, giving my thoughts on it. But, you know, it's very much worth, it's only 15 minutes long. It's very much worth going and giving it a listen after this. Off topic, I've done that one. Oh, sorry. No, I haven't done this one. Razzler says, United's medical team seriously needs to be looked at. Casemiro wasn't satisfied and had to see a doctor in Barcelona. Very good point, and I'm sure it's something INEOS will be looking at, pal. Wayne, a great show tonight, by the way. Really, really so much to get into. So much good debate going on. Wayne Finnegan, how you doing, Wayne? Says, off topic, Mark, but have you seen this Premier League Hall of Fame? How Irwin has been overlooked again and Andy Cole being in ahead of him as the best left back. Mate, I've got a podcast coming out tomorrow morning. Goldbridge Saves Football. It's on Spotify. I would make sure you get yourself onto Spotify after this show and give the show a follow so you get the notification for 7 a.m. tomorrow, so that when you get up you can listen to it, because the first 5 minutes is me going absolutely in on the Hall of Fame. Absolutely in. And some people might say it's controversial, but I actually think it's a bloody joke that Ryan Giggs isn't in there. I understand why he wasn't in there before, but the court case isn't going ahead. There is no other thing to happen to Ryan Giggs. So he is the most decorated Premier League player in Premier League history. Why is he now not considered to go into the Hall of Fame. If he hadn't have had those allegations or whatever had happened, he would have been straight in from day one. So Irwin as well is just even worse. Not putting Dennis Irwin in is basically a big thumbs up to manipulation of fact. Like, this is what terrifies me when I listen to youngsters talking about the Premier League who didn't watch it. And there's nothing, I've got nothing against that. You know, I like to talk about Duncan Edwards. I like to talk about George Best. I didn't see them. There are people who know more about it than me. But what I mean by that is youngsters didn't watch all of the Premier League, so they can't speak up for Dennis Irwin. But the people on the Premier League Hall of Fame panel have to know all of the Premier League. Otherwise, how can it be? Hall of Fame, they do it really well in the World Wrestling, right? Hall of Famers is always someone like Hulk Hogan or someone from the past who, you know, you bring them into the present. You let people know about them. Here's the Hall of Famer from the 80s, you know, the Ultimate Warrior, whatever like that. Dennis Irwin should not be ignored by the Premier League Hall of Fame. He should be one of the first names in it. They did it with Tony Adams. They've done it with Ian Wright. Dennis Irwin should be in it so that people know about him in the youth today. He is, without doubt, the best fullback in Premier League history. Without doubt. And you could argue he's a better right back than any of the best right backs in Premier League history as well. I mean, predominantly played left back for Manchester United, but definitely a better right back than Gary Neville. And Gary Neville would admit that. So, yeah, absolute garbage. Sam Preston says, I think it's garbage, but I read a theory about Malacia being in witness protection because he snitched on Quincy Promes. Well, you could probably read out about 10 different conspiracy theories. Obviously, we can't comment on what we don't know. We need 2 centre-backs and 2 midfielders before even considering a striker, says Goldio. I also think Toney is overrated. Love the name as well. Zach says, I think the truth is nobody knows about transfers. I think Sir Jim and INEOS like to work in the dark. As long as they work effectively in the dark. Some people work in the dark and they fumble. I went for a piss in the dark once and I pissed all over the floor. So, you know, as long as they're accurate in the dark, that's absolutely fine. Zay says, in my opinion, Rasmus, Garnacho and Mainu need to start every match. If we're going to revolutionise this roster, it begins with their development. I completely agree. There can't be any step backwards. You know, Mainu, Rasmus or Garnacho can't be going back to the bench. You're absolutely right. What if these Kim Min-jae being unhappy rumours, says Stewie? I don't know, mate. I guess we'll have to just wait and see. What's happening with Martial, says Dylan? I don't think he'll play for Man United again. I think Ten Hag would use him if he was fit. But, you know, is he going to be fit before the end of the season? It would be nice to have Anthony Martial on the bench. You know, I would love to see him play again for Man United in the last few weeks. I hold no grudge to Anthony Martial. I think some people do. I think his perception in the media is a disgrace. I think the way some people have spoken about him, certain ex-players, the media is wrong. I do like Anthony Martial. I've always liked Martial. For me, I've always liked Martial. I've always liked Rashford. I thought they were going to be something really, really special. And the same for Greenwood. I thought those 3 players were going to be something really special. Now, they've all deserved criticism for different reasons, but I still retain, as footballers, I still really have a soft spot for all 3 of them. And with Anthony Martial, he should never be booed and he should never be treated badly. His main problem has been injury. Phil Jones got bloody applauded walking on the pitch. He's played less than me at Old Trafford in the last few years. I have played there once. Martial is an injury problem, nothing else. So he will walk out the club for nothing, quite rightly, in the summer. But if he could get back for the bench, I would love to see it. I just don't know whether we will, Dylan. I think Cameron Jerome should be in a Hall of Fame, says Goldio. All I'm saying is the podcast tomorrow morning is so good in the first 5 minutes. I even made a case for Matt Letizia, but it's good about the Hall of Fame. Also, big shout out to the podcast tomorrow. Remember I was showing you those blue boots, the Blue Predators, light blue, but giving them away on the podcast exclusively tomorrow. And I'd love one of you to win it. So don't forget to listen to Goldbridge Saves Football tomorrow. We're giving away a pair of blue Adidas Predator boots. Brand new, never been worn. Check them out. What else have we got? So much to get into. Yeah, but very, very sad about Malacia. Very, very sad. And I don't think there's going to be a solution for him coming back at the moment. Just on Greenwood, actually. We were talking about Greenwood there, weren't we? Fabrizio was talking about Mason Greenwood. He said many clubs are interested, but they know that Man United will cash in on him, so they won't be prepared to spend too much on him. I think that's a bit of a false dawn as well. Really, you know, clubs don't want to pay a lot of money for Mason Greenwood, but there's a lot of clubs interested in him. It's about how you serve that up, really, for United. All you need is 2 or 3 clubs after a player, and you've got a bit of a bidding war. So if they want him, then the price we achieve will be the price we want to achieve. I'm quite confident about that. Just Kevin says, Ultras, if you know, you know. Ultras. Ultras. It's a great show tomorrow. It's back. Check that out. He did mention João Gomez as well of Wolves. He said, look, he's on the list of multiple clubs, including Manchester United. But as he said, a midfielder for Manchester United at the moment isn't a priority for Manchester United. And he said there's no concrete negotiations with midfielders linked to Manchester United, such as Ederson, Gomez or Rabiot at the moment. And he also said that getting Ederson could be difficult because Coop Miners is trying to get out as well. And he also said Harry Maguire will have a big influence on if Man United sign more than one centre-back, given that they want at least one important name in that area. So if Maguire goes, maybe we get 2. And on Frimpong, he said that United have had talks with him in the past that he wants to play Premier League football. So that Frimpong one is still very much a door that we can push down if we choose to do it. So I'm very, very intrigued to see how that plays out. I would go and listen to the Fabrizio Romano interview. It's only 15 minutes on our homepage. It's very, very much worth listening to in relation to the midfield conversation and what he said about Malacia, because there's a little bit more in it. But a great show tonight. Really enjoyed it. Don't forget Manscaped, 20% off, free worldwide shipping. Check that out by scanning the QR code or going through the link in the description. And as I said, do check out the interview with the Romano. It's fantastic today. I wish I could have done it, but Beth certainly did its service. And as I said, I'm on the morning show tomorrow, but the podcast comes out first thing at 7 o'clock. Get over onto the Spotify. Get ready to listen to that. I'll be tweeting it in the morning as well. But yes, thanks everyone for watching. What a great show tonight. EAFC 24 career mode is coming back. Don't you worry about that. There's even discussions of a United Stand Pro Clubs team ready to take on some of these upstarters. But obviously my loyalty at the moment is to Ginge, but you know, depends if I'm going to get the game time or not. So we'll see what happens with that. Take care, everyone. Time does fly on this show. It's the quickest hour of the day. You're absolute legends. Take care. I'll speak to you in a bit.